I was never one of those who wanted to live abroad, and I have my reasons. I had always desired to travel briefly and go back home. But then I married a Canadian Nigerian, and I've been in Canada since 2020. The economic, security, employment, and many other crises in Nigeria is forcing a lot of Nigerians to look for greener pastures elsewhere. And many are coming into Canada. But a lot of them are not fully aware of the facts before relocating, such as if the grass is greener here. Why are over 235,000 Canadians homeless? And why has it been estimated that 21% of Canadians will meet the criteria of drug addiction in their lifetime? There are things you should know, not to discourage you, but to help you make better decisions. We're covering 10 points, but I'm starting with and dwelling more on getting a job, because it's the biggest constraint for new immigrants and an underlying factor for many of the other points. You see, though there is a very high demand for skilled workers all across Canada, the most significant challenge immigrants face is finding employment opportunities that match their skill set and experience. Skilled immigrants in Canada struggle in the labor market, facing substantially higher levels of unemployment and lower wages than non-immigrants. Employers value Canadian education or work experience more than foreign education and experience. And they also fear that new immigrants do not have sufficient language skills. They may also make assumptions about cultural or language differences and categorically discriminate against immigrant job applicants, whether consciously or subconsciously. Funnily, Canadian immigration policy favors immigrants with high levels of education and experience in high-demand industries to try to attract high-skilled workers to boost economic growth. And these immigrants migrate to Canada with the hope of being able to land at least something close to the white-collar professions they left behind. What you don't know, however, is that these immigrants face an unemployment rate that is almost twice as high as Canadian-born workers of the same age. Following at least 6 months to 2 years of frantic job search, the new immigrants, doctors, engineers, professors, bankers, business executives, are forced to take up ordinary low-paid jobs as factory workers, security guards, and waiters. As a result, they are left traumatized with a deep scar on their mental psyche. Now, this is not to say that there aren't successful immigrants in Canada. You just have to work very hard at it, go back to school if possible, and improve on your language skills. But for me, going back to study architecture was something I didn't even want to consider. Some researchers conducted a survey. They randomly manipulated thousands of resumes to measure the effects that foreign experience and having an ethnic name like mine have on callback rates from employers. You know those names I'm talking about, right? Names like Chukudi, Oluwatumininu, and so on. And they found evidence of substantial discrimination against applicants with foreign names and strong accents. Resumes with English-sounding names received more callbacks than those with non-English sounding names. For many jobs also, a high level of computer literacy is required. I have had experience working in both the private and public sector of my country, Nigeria, and we're generally paid on a monthly basis on a fixed salary scale. Things are different in Canada, however. Your salary is based on an hourly rate and is calculated based on the number of hours you have put into the work. No work, no pay. And this doesn't stop the bills from piling up. Which brings me to the next topic. Bills. Based on a 2019 report by Investment Executive, 53% of Canadians live from paycheck to paycheck. 27% don't have enough for their daily needs, while 25% say that their debt load is overwhelming. So if your stingy uncle got angry with you for asking him to send money to you in Nigeria, you can now understand why. You know, it's so annoying when I see Nigerians flaunting stuff on social media, when most of them are on loan. It doesn't paint a realistic picture of the issues on ground. According to the report I mentioned earlier, Canadians have taken on debt in all forms. 45% of them on mortgage debt, 40% on car loans, 42% on lines of credit, and 15% on student loans. According to the report, 4 in 10 Canadians have a non-mortgage debt of over $20,000. This factor affects my next point, which is retirement. Canadians attempting to save for retirement are growing increasingly pessimistic. 38% of non-retirees have no retirement savings because they can't afford to, and 17% said they need to pay off debts first. 82% of Canadians think they would have to work longer than their parents did, and 69% say that even if they save, they still wouldn't have enough to make it through retirement. Before I go on, I would appreciate it if you can like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and share so others can benefit from it. Thanks as you do. Training the children. Canada has a nice package which they give to families to support them in childcare. This is the Canada Childcare benefit, a non-taxable amount paid monthly to help eligible families with the cost of raising children under 18 years of age. However, this is as good as it gets. You don't have much control over the indoctrination into godless practices that your children get via the process of education. And you don't get to discipline them as freely as you would have if you had been in Nigeria without getting into trouble with the government or have them taken from you. Do it yourself. In Nigeria, we're so used to having different people doing different tasks for us at affordable prices, but not so in Canada. Because of the high cost of labor, Canadians would much rather do different tasks by themselves. I always had a maid in Nigeria and could even afford to employ a driver. But here, no. Loneliness. In Nigeria, we don't know how to mind our business, in a good way though. We're a loving, caring people, and it is rare to be lonely and isolated from others. A 2015 research by Wu and Penning suggests that immigrants are one group that tend to report higher levels of loneliness. Because of migration from one country to another, many experience social disruption and increased isolation because of the unique stress of adjusting to Canadian society, including culture shock and difficulty finding employment. They may also encounter language barriers, credential recognition challenges, and other disruptions that can lead to higher levels of self-reported loneliness. You can't be in a crisis and just call anyone for help. You have to call 911. But this may reduce over time as they rebuild social networks and relationships. Let's talk about healthcare. Canada offers healthcare through the Canadian National Healthcare Service. Without a Canadian work visa, permanent residency, or citizenship, however, you may be unable to partake of this service. Then the next issue is that doctor's consultation is free, but not the medicine. The dental and eye care also are amazingly expensive, except you have insurance. According to a report by RBC in November 2022, finding a family doctor in Canada is getting harder. Roughly 6 million Canadian adults don't have access to a family doctor. And you don't want to know about the long queue you face if you ever have to visit the emergency. Next, we're going to talk about code of conduct and ethics. It takes a while getting used to the Canadian culture. Some words we use in Nigeria connote a different meaning to Canadians. In Nigeria, it's normal to help and assist people, especially the elderly. But if you do that here without asking for permission first, it will be deemed rude and an intrusion on personal space and privacy. So you ask questions like, "Can I help you?" And of course, you have to adjust to younger ones calling you by your name without the usual prefix we put in front of our names in Nigeria, such as auntie, uncle. The Canadian weather. This is the most talked about factor in Nigeria, and so the immigrant is kind of prepared for the cold. Experiencing it for the first time, though, is another thing entirely. The cold weather is kind of depressing. It's already dark outside by 4:30 p.m. and you find people spending more time indoors. I believe that a lot of the factors listed above are contributing greatly to the expanding opioid crisis in Canada and the increased rate of overdose deaths. A lot of people are turning to drugs to ease the pain, to fill a void, and as a means of coping with the system. If you're an immigrant to Canada or another country, I'd really like to know what it's like at your end. Kindly leave a comment below. If you're planning to migrate to Canada, you're very much welcome, but count the cost and be prepared. I'll probably do a video sometime soon about how some of us have managed to cope. Until my next video, guys, best wishes from me to you. Bye.